So we are going to walk through how to do an organizational revision technique on this evaluation essay. And the organizational technique that we're going to be doing is based off of a detailed template. Now, there might be some cases in which you get a detailed template for an essay that sort of gives you a good idea of exactly what all the moves are that you need to make and kind of to give you a strong organizational foundation for that essay. But sometimes things can still get a little messed up, or we may try really hard and it just doesn't quite work, or maybe we got this template after we wrote our essay. So for this example, we are going to assume that either we didn't use the template or we didn't have access to the template. And so this is the version of taking a rough draft and applying it to the template to see what all we can find and what all we can do as far as organization. So the first thing that we are going to do is, this is our rough draft of our essay. We are going to save a new file of it. Oops, sorry, save as. And I'm just going to save this to my desktop as a different file name. So maybe organization 1, or I'll put it in seatbelts because that's the topic of the essay. The reason why I am saving this as a new file is because I don't want to accidentally delete my rough draft, because I might need to go back to that in case anything happens technologically during this revision process. And sometimes it's even really helpful to have this original rough draft to go back to and move things after we've moved it in and out of the template. You may not need it, but it's always good to have a new copy saved. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the introduction, which is right here. And we're going to take the pieces of the introduction and apply it into the template. So the template is going to be asking for some sort of attention-grabbing fact, statistic, hypothetical situation, real-life example from a source, etc., something that gets the attention of the audience. We also have some background information that links the information from this to the thesis, so it works as a transition, often establishing context or purpose. And then the evaluative thesis that makes a clear judgment call or assessment on a policy and previews 2 to 4 reasons why you have made this specific claim. So let's start reading this introduction. Requiring that all passengers wear seatbelts in cars is an effective policy because proper use of safety restraints have saved many lives, and it is important to recognize the importance of wearing a seatbelt for all passengers. There's the thesis right there. We have an evaluative claim, this is an effective policy, and a couple of reasons why. So I am going to take this and move it into here. And I will change the font on it just so that it looks different so I can tell what is what. Okay, now I have what is what is left of my introduction. Buckling up helps keep you safe and secure inside of your vehicle, whereas not buckling up can really result in being totally ejected from the vehicle in a crash, which is almost always deadly. In 2017, a reported 37,133 deaths were caused by motor vehicle accidents. Of these, 47% were not wearing seatbelts in the back seat, NAP. Okay, so we have a source there. As we are cutting and pasting things, we will definitely want to make sure that citations go with the information that we are taking from that source. Seatbelts are created to protect the lives of both the driver and their passengers. Okay, so some sort of attention-grabbing fact statistic is obviously right here. In 2017, all right, that is pretty startling, okay? So that's going to get the attention of my audience. I'm going to stick that there and bold it. And then background information that links the information from number 1, okay? Here is that information. Now, I'm going to read this first before I copy it over because I've moved some things out of order already and I want to make sure that everything kind of stays logically in order. So in 2017, this many deaths were caused by accidents. Of this, So many people were not wearing seatbelts in the back seat. Buckling up helps keep you safe and secure inside of your vehicle, whereas not buckling up can result in being totally ejected from the vehicle in a crash, which is almost always deadly. Seatbelts are created to protect the lives of both the driver and the passengers. Okay, so now we have a little bit of a problem because these details logically set up this statistic. So we're actually kind of looking at a different kind of introduction where you would start with the topic, move into the significance, a statistic to prove the significance, and then a thesis to back it up. So I could totally put it in that order. Now, if I want to stay with this template and start with that statistic, then I'm going to have to reword these sentences a little bit to make it work. So if I move these over here, yeah, did I highlight too much? Yeah, okay. Oh well, we'll just do it like that. Gotta love technology. All right, so here is the section in the middle. This statistic proves that buckling up helps keep you safe and secure inside your vehicle, whereas not buckling up can result in being totally ejected from the vehicle in a crash, which is almost always deadly. Now it makes a little bit more sense to put the sentence in the middle because now it's referring back to the statistic. Seatbelts were created to protect the lives of both the driver and the passengers. Now, this sentence here is more general than this one, so it doesn't really make sense to keep it here. We can actually delete that one. Well, that should be a number 3. Oh well, the numbers and stuff are going to get a little messed up, but the organization is the most important part. Now, can we add more background information that would link this introduction to the thesis? Absolutely, we could. Do we have to? It kind of depends on the essay and how much development your professor is looking for in this case. But for now, just for this organizational process, we're going to just leave it like that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to main point 1, and we are going to look at what our preview is in the thesis. So it's an effective policy because proper use of safety restraints have saved many lives. And I'm just going to go ahead and highlight this so that I can see very clearly what my 2 main points are. All right. So now I'm going to go over here back to my rough draft. Use of seatbelts have saved many lives. There we go. That goes with our first main point. So there's potentially my topic sentence. Use of seatbelts have saved many lives regardless of where you are seated in a vehicle. Okay, so that tells me that this paragraph is going to be talking about how lives have been saved, and these lives have been saved regardless, wherever a person is sitting. Okay, so now we're going to look at our next sentence. For ages, there's been this myth about riding in the back seat without a seatbelt is far less dangerous than the front seat. The truth is, passengers may be 3 times as likely to get injured in a car accident if they're not wearing a seatbelt in the back seat. Crash test results show that there's more available space to travel from the back of the car to the front, so passengers are more prone to fly up and over the seats ahead of them. This means that many backseat passengers have a greater chance of colliding with the steering wheel, dashboard, and the front glass of the car. Unrestrained passengers can be a danger to everyone in the vehicle. Okay. This portion of the paragraph fits this idea of supporting details that explain how or why this reason led to your judgment call or assessment. Okay, so we are going to put that in here. Okay, now something that you've noticed if you've read through this, it's talking about saving lives. Okay, so it does kind of talk about saving lives regardless of where you're seated in the vehicle. Now, this does talk about people in the back seat. But what else is it missing? It's not talking about um, passengers in the front seat, okay? Because our thesis talks about all passengers wear seatbelts. So that doesn't mean just passengers in the back seat. It means passengers in the front too. So that is something that I am missing in this main point because I say regardless of where you are seated in the vehicle. All right, so I'm going to write a note to myself, add in information on passengers in the front seat. Okay, so that helps me see something that I'm missing. All right, the implications of what the results will be if this is not addressed or what we're currently facing because it isn't currently addressed and why that's important. Okay, the crash test results. That they have a greater chance of colliding with the steering wheel and dashboard in front of the car. That helps with the implications. Um, we also have some other details in the essay that could work here. Unrestrained passengers can be a danger to everyone in the vehicle. All right, but we don't actually say how. I mean, it does say that they can collide with the steering wheel, the dashboard, and the front glass of the car. That's a danger to the car and definitely a danger to them. But it doesn't say how they're a danger to a vehicle. So prove this. I haven't finished that thought. So a lot of times while I'm putting things in these blanks, I'll notice, oh, wait, like I have an idea here, but I didn't actually develop it. Whoops. So that's why sometimes going back to this template is really helpful. All right, so main point 2, we are looking for the importance of wearing a seatbelt for all passengers. Many states, as Texas, require that all passengers in a vehicle be secured. Law enforcement will ticket anyone who isn't wearing a seatbelt. There's details in here about seatbelts have saved more lives. But it is important to recognize the importance of wearing a seatbelt for all passengers. This is a good sign that we are having some problems with that second main point if we don't have that kind of explicitly stated in what's left of our essay. And it also, sometimes just by looking at these two compared to each other, it's kind of more general. Like it's important to wear a seatbelt, but what does that mean? Like this one specifically says, hey, it'll save your life. But what does it mean beyond that? What is a different reason? And it looks like we have some details here on like tickets. And so maybe we need to change the wording of our second main point, that it is an effective policy because proper use of safety restraints have saved many lives and getting citations is effective to help encourage compliance. Okay, because that's basically what the second main point is talking about, right? It's saying that, hey, if you are in states such as Texas, then you can get ticketed, and depending on the state laws, you can even be cited. The driver can be cited for the passenger not wearing their seatbelt, and as well as the passenger potentially. Um, so by having this overall policy that all passengers are wearing seatbelts in cars and using citations as a consequence to that is going to help with compliance. That one will help these details make more sense. So we are going to need to add a few things though, because we don't really have a topic sentence. We do have a lot of supporting details though. So we are going to stick our supporting details in here. Okay, so we need a transition from the previous point. We notice that this is empty. This is something that we're going to have to add. For example, we could say something like, even knowing these statistics and facts about the dangers of not wearing a seat belt, some people may still choose not to wear them. That is, then our topic sentence is going to establish our second main point here. That is why having the police having the authority to give citations for not wearing seat belts is so important. So then we can move into our supporting details. Many states, such as Texas, we use Texas as an example here, require that all passengers in a vehicle, We do need a citation here. So I'm going to write a reference here so I remember, hey, put in a citation, don't forget. And then the implications of what the results of this will be if it's not addressed, or what we're currently facing because it's not addressed, why it's important, okay? So I put in my topic sentence, this is why giving the police the authority to give citations for not wearing seatbelts is so important. So I need to address that here in the implications. Because of these citations, many people will be more likely to wear seatbelts and thus save the lives of themselves and their passengers. And then this right here, this statistic right here fits perfectly in with that. So we are going to move this over here. According to the National Highway Safety Administration, seatbelts have saved more than 15,000 lives each year and an additional 2,500 lives, not loves necessarily, they could be loved ones. I think this should be lost lives, could be avoided by everyone in the vehicle buckling up. In 2015, there were auto accidents. And then again, I have forgotten to put in a citation, so that is technically plagiarism. I will definitely want to make sure that because I have source information, I want a citation. Okay? All right, now I have a conclusion, basically, requiring that all passengers abide by the safety laws in place to protect us. Okay, that is a reference to wearing seatbelts without specifically saying it, will assist with decreasing the number of motor vehicle deaths. As drivers, we are accountable for every passenger in our vehicles. There's a summary detail. Use of seatbelts for, or by, probably by, all passengers is the most important way to reduce the risk of death or serious injury. Okay, so that works pretty well as the conclusion. We're going to skip on down here. This works as the transition because it is a bit of a summary statement, but we can hear that. Right? Summary of the main points. But now we need some sort of closing comments, okay? And there's lots of different ways that we could do closing comments in here, but we realize that by putting this into the template, we have like a really short conclusion. And is that always a problem? No, not necessarily. Sometimes conclusions can be really short. But a lot of times it's helpful to have some sort of closing comments. So what could they be in our case? As drivers, we are accountable for every passenger in our vehicles. Use of seat belts by all passengers is the most important way to reduce the risk of death or serious injury. Car rides should be about safely transporting people from one place to another, not one place to a morgue. Okay. We could probably write that a lot better, but just as a brainstorming idea, it brings in a little bit more pathos, like an emotional appeal, underscoring that whole death thing, and is a pretty nice closing comment that is a reminder of the dire implications of not working with this policy. Now, if you notice, our rough draft, all we have left is our works cited. We don't have a counter argument and refutation. So this is really helpful for us to know, hey, we forgot something. We need to add a counter argument and refutation to this essay. So those missing points are going to help us. Other things that are really helpful by looking at this detailed template is that we can kind of see how short some things might be, especially once we start moving them back in. So let's say if we are going to move this back into our essay to start rebuilding it in the order that we want. And I'm just copying and pasting here. Okay, and I'm going to take off the bold, and I'm going to take off the highlighting. All right, and we can see that, yeah, that might be a little bit short, but it does work, okay? And then I can start taking all of these other little pieces in here, noticing where I added little notes in red of what things that I need to prove, things I need to add, citations that I need to add, and then of course any blank spaces. So this is one way that you can work on really noticing if there are details that don't work. Like in this case, we realized that our second main point was too general and the details that we had didn't really support it because it was way too general and actually kind of included the first main point. So by matching our preview of the main point to the idea that we are actually developing in the essay helped us a lot with organization because now the readers know specifically where we were going with this. Okay? So this is just one example of how it could work. Of course, with your rough draft, you may have a lot more variation in finding different details that end up being put into main point one. We might have found details like way near the end that actually should have gone in main point one, and so then we would copy and paste them in here. And you might have to do some work transitioning and making all those sentences work together in one cohesive paragraph. Or it might be a sign that you need more than one paragraph for the supporting details for a main point. Just because it's a main point doesn't mean that it has to be one paragraph. It can be multiple paragraphs. So anyways, I hope that this was helpful for you as just one example. If you are struggling with this, and it could be that this is just not the organizational revision technique that works well for you, or maybe you need someone just to kind of help walk you through it one-on-one, and that is where your teacher can come in. This is where tutors can come in, or other people that you respect and have the kind of knowledge that they need to help guide you through this process. So I invite you to try this and see how it works and see what you can learn about your writing.